Good morning. It's Sunday, February 19th, and today I want to take a little time to talk about a great event that seems to have been falling by the wayside during these tenuous times where we have been concentrating on the effects of the pandemic. I think the pandemic has caused a loneliness epidemic. And I know that's quite true in my house right now because we can't get out of the house as often as we like. But that's due to Gertrude's home care right now. But there are many other people in the world, in the United States, who haven't been able to get out and about too much in the last 2 or 3 years. And I think many of us are probably suffering from loneliness. So I want to tell you about this great event that we have to get back to. It's very important that we get back to this event if we feel the need, and I'm sure most of us feel the need, and I'm hoping that most of us are still physically capable of performing this event. And what I am talking about is sex. Sex is good. Sex is healthy. Sex is an essential part of our social fabric. And we specifically in the United States should be having more of it. Americans in the midst of a loneliness epidemic are not having enough sex. Can you imagine that? Could you imagine at any time in your life that somebody would tell you that Americans are not having enough sex? I find that an astounding statistic. Not enough sex. Now, I know that our birth rate has gone down, but I'm not attributing that to the activities in the bedroom or the kitchen or the living room or wherever this event happens to take place. In the back seat of a car, perhaps, Wherever you feel like doing it and you get the urge, jump out there and do it. And this epidemic, this lack of sexual activity, is across every demographic group. Americans young and old, single and coupled, rich and poor are having less sex than they had at any point in the last 3 decades. Imagine a sexless society for over 3 decades. I find that incomprehensible. Now, sex isn't the only form of fulfilling a human interaction. Sometimes a nice hug and a kiss will do a great deal for loneliness. But still, sex is critical. It's a critical part of our social well-being. It's not an indulgence. It's not something that you do as an afterthought. I know that many of you have probably performed sex 2 or 3 times in one evening. Think about that. Weren't those great times? And more than a quarter of Americans haven't had sex at least even once in the past year. Imagine, 1 in 3 Americans who are capable of the act haven't had it in over a year. Now, the last time that the General Social Survey asked in 2021, it was the highest level of sexlessness in the survey's history. I didn't even know they had such a survey. Nobody ever asked me any sexual questions from the group called the General Social Service Survey. Nobody came and asked. I bet none of you have even asked a question by those people, the General Social Surveys people, right? That figure includes almost 30% of them under 30. So we're not talking here about altacacas. We're talking about people in the prime of life. So since 2008, the number of sexless men in their 30s and below have tripled. So 3 times as many men prior to 2008 are not having sex. What's happening? Have we lost the urge? Are these people doing something better? Is there anything better to do socially than getting laid? And now the figure for people who haven't had sex in over a year is over 40%. It's incorrigible that we have lost our sexual drive in this country. And it keeps on dropping. Why? Does it have something to do with the fact that we have not allowed to have abortions now or something? And it's not only the sex that has disappeared. It's the partnerships and the cohabitations are down. Well, that makes perfectly good sense. If you're not ready to have sex, you probably don't have a partner and you're not cohabiting with anybody. And of course we're spending less time with our friends and our lovers. That's because of the pandemic. That pandemic has left a stain on us. I think many people are still afraid to get out and socialize and get together with people. There are many who are still living a cloistered life, And believe me, you cannot be happy unless you are interacting with other people. Loneliness is a bitch. And sex helps defeat loneliness. So somewhere between a third and two-thirds of Americans report on being lonely. Loneliness is very important in this loop. So if you know any young people or old people, encourage them to get back in the bed. Encourage them to have sex 2 or 3 times a week. There's no point in avoiding the issue. Loneliness is a challenge that has to be overcome. And I know that many of us, myself included, have not been able to get out of the house as often as we'd like. So the average American in 2021 spent less than 58% of his time with friends than in 2013. And I got to assume that's all part of the pandemic. So if you can't meet with your friends that often, then you better have sex, get laid, get it out of your system. Now, COVID-19 has caused this spike in loneliness and the decline in sex, but it's only partially responsible. I don't know what the whole answer is, but between 2014 and 2019, the decrease in times people spent with friends was greater than it was during the pandemic. Well, during the pandemic, many of us had to spend time alone. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have sex, if you're alone. There's masturbation, there are vibrators, right? I knew several young ladies that had more than one vibrator, which I found to be astounding. But in any event, you've got to have sex. And now I can tell you the other thing about sex. People are having fewer and fewer partners. Now, I'm not a big fan of having many partners, but whatever makes you feel good, you should go out there and do it. And I know that sex will make all of us feel better. So I leave you with those thoughts today. The craziness and the loneliness in our society that has engulfed us for the last 3 years. Let's get out and get laid. Have a great day. Bye.